Yeah, I want to touch on the fact that apparently Robert Pattinson is going to appear in the 8-part episode Penguin TV spin-off series by HBO Max that is obviously going to be starring Colin Farrell. Which I think is pretty interesting. And I always had that thought in the back of my head when they announced the 8-part series. I'm like, that's cool for Colin because he did such a damn good job in the Batman. And that makeup that Mike Marino and his crew did was incredible, so much so they got nominated for an Oscar for that makeup. And I definitely hope they bring Mike Marino and his crew back to do that makeup. It only makes sense. Like, I think that was one of the biggest draw cards with the Batman is when you tell people that that's Colin Farrell under that penguin makeup and him having no idea it's Colin Farrell. And just that performance, like he performs the shit out of that makeup. It can be so hard to perform with heavy prosthetic makeup. But these days, with how makeup technology has evolved in terms of silicone being a lot more forgiving than foam latex, you can do some amazing performances in prosthetic makeup like that. And to see that he's going to be getting his own 8-part series is great. And now they're saying essentially that Robert Pattinson will be appearing in at least one episode of The Penguin. And I always thought he has to appear. But if they're going to do it, I think they have to do it in a tasteful way and do it in a way where it's either going to be one episode or he's going to be just sprinkled tastefully throughout the 8-part episodes. I don't want it to be like the Book of Boba Fett, where the Mandalorian shows up and he steals the show, essentially. It no longer becomes Book of Boba Fett. It's Book of Mandalorian. So, or Book of Pedro Pascal, because that guy is just absolutely incredible and killing it at the moment with The Last of Us. So I think it's a great idea. I definitely want to see more of Pattinson. It'd be great with how they write his character that there's a transition in the Penguin series, because obviously this takes place 2 weeks after the events of the Batman. Gotham is still essentially underwater. So it's staying with that continuity. And this is essentially Oz's rise to power after the death of Carmine Falcone. But I want to see some little character arcs for Pattinson possibly in this series where they can pick up in the Batman Part 2 where they left off with Pattinson's characterization of Batman in the HBO series. So they're about to start filming, I believe, in a couple of weeks. I've got the article here from comicbook.com. They essentially they're murmurs at the moment, but for the most part, a lot of people are like, yeah, Pattinson will be appearing little bits here and there or in one episode of the Penguin series, which I think is a great idea. I think it can be done in a very tasteful way and also just have some character arcs for him, even though they'd be minute, but then see those character arcs being continued in the Batman Part 2. Because with this trilogy, I want there definitely to be an evolution of Pattinson's Bruce Wayne. And what I loved is we saw minimal Bruce Wayne in the Batman and a lot of Batman in the Batman, which is really cool and refreshing because most times out of 10 in Batman movies, you don't see much of Batman. It's Bruce Wayne. It can be a bit boring and drag a bit. And a lot of people did have the complaint that Pattinson's interpretation of Bruce in the Batman was very emo. I see where they're coming from, but you also have to understand if this is going to be a trilogy, there has to be an evolution of his Bruce Wayne. Possibly in the Batman Part 2, we start to see him become that Bruce Wayne with a Playboy persona, and by the third one, he is final form Bruce Wayne. That's what I'd like to see. Much like we saw with Bale's Bruce Wayne, he definitely has his character arcs and his journey, and I definitely want there to be the same with the Batman. Though if you are going to have him in the Penguin series, it definitely has to be one of those things where it has to be subtle and not take away from the incredible performance that Colin Farrell will definitely give. Like, the guy's on a roll at the moment. I still need to see, and I don't know the proper name for it, but I just call it the Banshees of Ed Sheeran. Apparently everyone's raving about that. He's on a roll at the moment, so I'm hyped for it. And if Pattinson's going to be in it, I'm hyped for it too.